What's that guy doing there? Oh, I'm gonna let him out. Okay, watch out. Watch out, little guy. Okay, come here. Come here. Jump up. Come on, silly. Jump onto my hand. Ah. Come here. I'm your way out. Okay, we'll do this the easy way. There you go. Afternoon, guys. Welcome to another video. Just about to harvest a bunch of my greenhouse basil, which is timely because I want to show you how to make vegan pesto. So these 5 beds of basil here, I harvested them about 5 weeks ago, and they've since grown back almost double. I'll throw a link down below to my previous video that shows you how to harvest basil properly. But for now, I'm just going to cut this stuff down as well as some other basil I have on the property. Alright, so I cleared out the greenhouse basil. Now it's time to harvest some of this outdoor basil. Now I've got 3 main areas of basil on the farm. This stuff is my outdoor stuff. Has been producing great. It's starting to bolt now because we haven't had any cool weather. It's just been hot after hot after hot. And so basil, when it gets too hot, you know, sort of the late stretches of summer here, it'll start bolting, and you don't want to be eating this stuff when it's flowering. And so this outdoor stuff here is the same variety as I have in the greenhouse, but it's got a bit of a different flavor profile. It's a little bit more concentrated. The leaves are smaller. There's probably less moisture in them, so it is a bit spicier. And so I really like it by itself, but for the family, I believe it's too potent. So what I'll do is when I'm making pesto, I'll split it half and half with the greenhouse stuff just to make it a little bit more mild. And so the third type of basil I have here is this tall variety. It's got a totally different growth pattern than the other stuff. You know, even if I harvest it properly and top it off, leave 2 nodes on there, it still seems to grow up really tall and lanky. It also has a different flavor profile. It's a little bit sweeter. Not necessarily more mild, it just seems to have a sweeter taste. So all I have left is these 18 4-inch pots. It is probably too late, being the middle of August, to throw these out into the garden and get any sort of production off of them. So I have been cutting this tray. I may throw a few out into the farm stand, you know, if I can make them look presentable enough. But these pots will likely be the final resting spot for these guys. I'll leave them in the greenhouse now, and I'll just crop them as many times as I can before they start to fail in October. Alright guys, I've got all my basil harvested. Let's head inside and make the pesto. So any pesto sauce, traditional or not, starts with 4 main ingredients. Obviously, you have your basil leaves, you have your garlic, you have your oil, usually olive oil, and then you usually have your nut or nut substitute. Now, traditional pestos will use pine nuts, but pine nuts are super expensive. So when I'm making a nut-based pesto pasta, I'll use crushed walnuts instead. But this recipe is for vegan and nut-free pesto. You know, nut allergies are becoming more and more common these days, so this recipe is completely nut-free. So in this recipe, we actually use pumpkin seeds as our nut base. And honestly, you can't really tell the difference. So let's get started. Now you'll notice here I have a 5th ingredient. This is simply just a salt and pepper mixture. We can dump it in with the pumpkin seeds. I like to add the salt because it brings out more of the flavors of the basil leaves. So I'm going to be making a few dozen batches of this, but what I'll do here is just make enough for 1 batch. So the first thing you want to do is you want to get all your cloves of garlic. Alright, so we have all the garlic. We'll just throw that in there. Oh. There's a spider on our basil leaf. Right there. Well, we can't shred him up. Let's put him to the side for now. Make sure there's no other buggies in here. Okay, so traditionally, the basil is ground up in a mortar and pestle. Because I am making so much today, and I am making it for freezing, I am just going to make it in a food processor or blender. Now I know the purists will say it doesn't taste the same, and it's true. If you are making fresh pesto, it does not taste the same. But because I'm making so much of it, and because I am freezing it for use all through the winter to next spring, the taste is pretty much negligible. And really, I don't have all day to sit there and grind copious amounts of basil leaves. Okay, so let's add our ingredients to the blender cup and get this going. Now, first up, I add the basil leaves. I just stuff as much in there as will fit. Now I should note, traditionally, a lot of pesto recipes are a garlic sauce with hints of basil. Now a lot of North American pesto recipes are purely basil based because people really love the taste of basil. But I do know there's some purists out there that will say, oh, that's way too much basil. You know, it's supposed to be a garlic sauce with some basil in it. I realize that some people prefer that sort of pesto, but this is the kind that I'm making today. Whoa, that's messy. Whoa! Okay, we got most of that cleaned up. Now we just add our olive oil. I usually just do this by eyeball. You know, I don't have a hardcore set of measurements for each ingredient, but I do know that some people like to follow a recipe. So in the description below, I'll put an exact recipe to follow, as well as I'll flash it up on the screen here at the end. Okay, now let's grind it up. Okay, well, let's see how we did. Now I often just pour it back into the oil container. There we go. One batch of pesto. So I usually gauge a batch based on one full garlic clove. So let's go outside and see how many garlic cloves we have left, and then we know how much pesto we can make. Okay, so it looks like we have about 60 cloves left. And so I do know last year we went through about 40 batches of pesto, which also included giving some away. And then we ran out of pesto around April, which was about 2 weeks before the first crop of basil was ready to harvest. Because in the summertime, we just eat the fresh pesto. So I think if I make 50, yeah, I'll take the biggest 50 bulbs and make 50 batches of pesto. Yeah, should be good. So my basil bed is being taken over by 3 zucchini volunteers, which I'll talk about in a later video. So it'll be interesting to see after this mega harvest, in it being the middle of August, how many more cuttings I can get off this outdoor basil, you know, before it's too late. So that's it. That's my vegan, nut-free pesto recipe. And I gotta be honest, if you grow your own garlic and you grow your own basil, it tastes better. Trust me, it does. Thanks for watching, fellow gardeners. As always, leave some questions or comments down below. I'd love to hear some of your pesto recipes. Love to hear some of your basil growing tips. Anything you want to talk about, really, even if it's off topic. Just leave some comments down below. If it's not too much trouble, click the subscribe button down below. For those of you that already have, I do appreciate the support. Thanks a lot. And I'll see you guys next time. Okay, there's nobody around. How can I not take a stab at this? Oh man, that is the best.